General, will you please speak with me? Tonight, exposing military secrets.
Obviously, the organization is infested with corruption.
And criminal behavior inside one of the state's most revered organizations.
They're finally understanding that this is really going on in the military.
A series of Channel 4 I-Team investigations into men held to the highest of standards.
I place you under arrest for driving under the influence of alcohol.
Accused of tarnishing the reputation of the Tennessee National Guard.
This female officer says that you sexually harassed her and then threatened her career.
Prompting outrage from prosecutors.
Someone sent me your story. I was surprised, probably a little bit angry.
To the U.S. Congress.
I've lost my patience on this one. Enough is enough.
What you will see in the next hour is proof, according to whistleblowers, of widespread corruption within the Tennessee National Guard. From how guardsmen are advancing through the ranks despite criminal behavior to reports of sexual misconduct that go all the way to the top of the Major General's staff. And our investigation into sexual misconduct began not in Tennessee, but in the Horn of Africa, where for the first time the I-Team exposed the criminal behavior of Tennessee National Guardsmen during a mission of mercy. They went to provide a vital resource. But what Tennessee soldiers did in a foreign land launched a U.S. Army criminal investigation into how Tennesseans ignored warnings about human trafficking and prostitution in the Horn of Africa, and in the process placed sensitive classified materials in jeopardy.
There need to be some consequences.
The Channel 4 I-Team not only obtained the military investigation, but also photographs and other evidence into what members of the 775th Engineering Detachment did in both Djibouti, Africa, and in just across the border in Dire Dawa, Ethiopia. Criminal actions the public never knew about until now. The unit was sent to help dig water wells in and around Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti and Dire Dawa. The military investigation shows the soldiers were given training by a captain in early July about, quote, that there was an issue with human trafficking in the area, how women end up stranded in Dire Dawa while trying to get to the Middle East. I told them not to engage in using prostitutes and that part of the mission is a positive projection of America. Moses Achonu is a native African and teaches African history at Vanderbilt.
The poverty makes people desperate in that region, and it is not uncommon sometimes to see underage girls and sometimes even boys try to eke out a living by selling themselves.
But both before and after that training, the military investigation found probable cause that 9 of the 19 members of the unit had sex with prostitutes, either at an off-base residence in Djibouti or committed sexual acts in exchange for money at the Samrat Hotel in Dire Dawa.
To perpetrate that absolutely counters everything that we should be there to do.
When the soldiers were later interviewed, one sergeant made a spontaneous statement that several of the women referring to the prostitutes were younger than his daughter. The report blacked out the age of that soldier's daughter.
How can you have a conscience and not speak up and try to do something?
And photographs and drawings show why there was additional concern. A lieutenant says that senior leaders were taking prostitutes into a room where their weapons were stored. He goes on to say that the prostitutes were taken to a sergeant's room where a secure communication system was kept, and also secret documents were stored.
It's a cocktail of pressure, but you expect professionally trained soldiers to be able to withstand that pressure and do the job for which they were sent there.
While one of the soldiers did admit to paying for a prostitute, others asked for lawyers. Evidence was seized. The colonel said that some soldiers did not want to give up their phones. The colonel is quoted as believing the phones may contain evidence of criminal actions. Hearing all of this makes those who fight against human trafficking say the National Guard needs to explain what happened.
If the military has the face that we do not want our soldiers to go in and buy sex, then there needs to be some consequences.
So far, we've shown you cases of sexual misconduct in the rank and file, but our investigations also found a top colonel in the Guard accused of sexual harassment, and even after the military determined that it happened, denied him a promotion, and then he retired, he was then rehired with the Tennessee National Guard.
She came to this National Guard Association conference in Nashville to learn from the best, but left with the worst of experiences.
It weighs on me pretty heavily. It's a huge, bigger than just myself problem.
What happened to this former Tennessee National Guard officer resulted in part in this U.S. Army Inspector General investigation. An investigation that led to a letter of reprimand for this top colonel and prevented him from being considered for a general position. But the Channel 4i team has uncovered it didn't keep him from being hired back with the Tennessee National Guard.
Obviously, the organization is infested with corruption.
Fearing that identifying herself could harm her military career, she asked that we hide her face. She says she remembers being in a hospitality room at the conference and being told to go speak with the Chief of Staff with the Tennessee National Guard, Colonel William Wenzler.
Because he would be a good opportunity for professional development.
She says the conversation between the two started off fine, but took an unexpected turn.
Telling me I'm very beautiful, mentioning that his wife is in Afghanistan. He asked me to escort him back to his room.
The IG's report shows when she refused, she was approached by him the next night.
Made a very direct proposition. He said that, I'd really like to you. This is my room number. And I couldn't even respond. I was so shocked.
And there were witnesses. Other people saw this.
Yeah, there were.
Although their names and ranks are blocked out in the report, the investigation shows another conference attendee testified that he and another attendee observed Colonel Wenzler's and the officer's conversation and said, "Man, if I am not mistaken, because I heard the colonel ask this young lady if she wanted to go upstairs and have sex."
It was alarming that somebody, again, of his stature with that much power would think he was in a position to be able to do that and get away with it.
This officer says when she went to two of her superiors in the Tennessee National Guard, along with a sexual assault response coordinator, their advice was the same.
They advised me that if I was to move forward with turning this guy in, with filing a complaint, that it would have severely negative impacts on my career.
But you ultimately did.
I did.
In the IG report, Wenzler testified that the allegations were not true, but that he would write a statement to apologize for anything that he might have said that offended the officer. Investigators ultimately concluded that Wenzler made inappropriate comments and references to the officer and wasn't truthful about what happened. That, along with other troubling findings in the report, resulted in a letter of reprimand by the Vice Chief of Staff with the U.S. Army. A spokesman for the Tennessee National Guard emailed and confirmed Wenzler's name was removed from the General Officer U.S. Senate nomination list. He then retired from military service. But look at the website for the Tennessee National Guard, and you will see among the state staff and commanders, William Wenzler, because even after the Inspector General's findings and the removal of his general consideration, Wenzler was rehired as the Director of Administrative Services for the Tennessee National Guard.
That sounds like his boys covered for him.
Retired Colonel William Wenzler was more than happy to answer questions from the governor, but was in quite the hurry when the I-Team had questions for him as well.
This female officer says that you sexually harassed her and then threatened her career. What do you say to that? There isn't anything you want to say to that?
I want to thank you for your interest in the military department, and I'd like to thank you guys for supporting the veterans.
We've been trying to speak to Wenzler about this, an Inspector General's investigation that shows he was found to have failed to adhere to military values for inappropriate comments and references to this female officer, including when she told Wenzler at a conference that she would walk away if he seriously offended her. He replied, "You might not want to do that. That might be bad for your career." Following that encounter, she told military investigators he sexually propositioned her.
I denied everything then. I'm denying it again now. I will not participate in a reinvestigation of something that was unfounded to start with.
So are you saying that the military investigators were wrong then in their findings?
Absolutely.
General? That is Major General Terry Haston. This is a reporter who's requested an interview with him for months. General, hey, this is Jeremy Finley with Channel 4. You know, I've tried to schedule a few interviews with you. You can see he was more interested in leaving than answering questions. General, will you please speak with me? The general had come here to the Guard's Regional Training Center after summoning all of the recruiters in the state, following a series of Channel 4 I-Team investigations. I need to ask you about why some of your own recruiters are questioning why National Guardsmen are being allowed to stay in the National Guard despite criminal backgrounds. And tonight, a source provided the Channel 4 I-Team the audio of what was said inside the meeting, a meeting where the general and his top staff gave a blistering lecture to the recruiters.
I don't know how to say it other than this. Any instances of impropriety from 15 October on, I will be ruthless about enforcing. Does everybody understand that?
Here's Sergeant Major Terry Scott talking about the dashcam video the Channel 4 I-Team exposed of two recruiters driving a recruit in a truck while drunk.
There's some things that are going on that I don't like. When all this TV show and we're doing this, and I saw the two drunks on TV and knew they were National Guardsmen, it embarrassed me as an NCO. It embarrassed me for the Tennessee National Guard.
And when it was time for the general to address the recruiters, he didn't hold back.
I cannot tolerate any more of this behavior. And y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. My tolerance level is 0. More than half of my behavior problems in Tennessee National Guard comes from my recruiting force.
But the administration itself is also under fire from some of its own for allowing these men to stay in the Guard. General, are you going to answer any of my questions? While he had nothing to say to us, his message to his recruiters was clear.
I'm not going to absolutely tolerate you dragging my organization down that I love.
The findings from our investigations then prompted an assistant district attorney to write the governor and the major general, asking, how is it that a guardsman I successfully prosecuted is still in your organization? It's an admission Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Jaco makes not once,
Had been drinking? Yes, sir.
not twice,
I think I was wrong drinking before I got there.
but 3 times.
Yes, I had been drinking.
Actually make that 4 times.
I didn't stay there long enough to sober up because I was pissed off.
And he also admits in this DUI video obtained by the I-Team about the loaded gun in his truck.
Having a loaded weapon, that's definitely wrong.
At his trial, he was convicted of DUI and possession of a handgun while intoxicated. His request for a second trial denied. And a Channel 4 I-Team investigation in April exposed how 4 years after being arrested, Jaco is still with the Tennessee National Guard at the same rank.
Someone sent me your story.
The prosecutor who convicted Jaco admits he was taken aback.
I was surprised, probably a little bit angry.
Assistant District Attorney Jack Arnold then wrote this letter to Governor Haslam and Major General Terry Haston, and after detailing some specifics of Jaco's case, including that his blood alcohol level was nearly twice the legal limit, he wrote, "It came to my attention that Jaco is still an active duty member of the Guard. Frankly, I cannot get my head around this."